Berkshire Hathaway bought into this tech stock. The legendary investor who rarely invests in tech, let alone IPOs. This guy's firm. Okay, so it probably wasn't Buffett who made this call and did the research, but it was probably one of his lieutenants who had to get his blessing to pull the trigger. It was already one of the most highly anticipated IPOs of 2020. We're doing a deep dive into Snowflake. Is it all hype or should you invest?
Let's do it.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Matthew. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're talking all things Snowflake. Snowflake is another one of those cloud stocks where about half of us only understand about 20% of what they actually do, but stocks go up, so who cares? We invest, right? Right? Not really. Today I'm sharing all of my due diligence so far on Snowflake in the most digestible way possible. Here we go. Give me the format. First, as always, an overview of what Snowflake does and how their business model works. Second, their key investment from not only Papa Buffett, but also Salesforce and why this is very important. Third, their juicy financials. Fourth, Snowflake's leadership, more specifically their CEO, because this role is extremely key to any company. Is he good or bad? Fifth, a combination of competition and the risks involved with this investment. And finally, sixth, what am I going to do? No time wasted, let's get right into part one, an overview of Snowflake, their business, their product, and what they do. In a nutshell, Snowflake allows companies to handle big data in a way that is never before seen. Unlimited computing and storage in the cloud. The problem is, companies these days spend too much time managing their data instead of utilizing it to its full potential. This is because the architecture of the current on-site platforms are very cumbersome and complex. Snowflake builds modern data architecture that eliminates the complexity and cost of existing data architecture. Snowflake also calls itself the data warehouse of the cloud, because these days a lot of data warehouses are on-site or on-premise. This means there are actual computers and machines on site at a company, whereas Snowflake lives in the cloud. Here is one of a few very key things that you have to understand about Snowflake. It's extremely easy to exchange data from one Snowflake user to another. This introduces the network effect, which in turn causes more people and more data to land on the platform. In other words, when you join Snowflake, you're actually joining a network of users and data, which, perceived by a potential user, could be very valuable. Now for the product itself, yes, Snowflake is available on services like Google Cloud, AWS, and Azure, and it can also connect with other third-party services being used by customers. The key value proposition for their product? Snowflake architecture. It looks a little something like this, but I'm not a comp sci person, so I'm not going to act like I have any firm grasp on half of these words. But I think I made a valiant effort to understand this architecture, enough to speak on it today for some initial due diligence. Snowflake's product has a wide range of use cases ranging from data engineering to data science to data exchange. Lastly, Snowflake has a very diverse set of customers from Instacart to Caterpillar to Square to Adobe and many other big names. Together, they total over 1 exabyte of data under management. And the last thing you need to know is that Snowflake is not just a subscription service. You actually need to buy Snowflake credit, which you then redeem whenever you use Snowflake for a variety of different tasks, like organizing, storing, or sifting through data. And without getting into too much detail, Snowflake's contracts between them and their customers do outline a general amount of Snowflake credits that will be purchased or redeemed over the life of the contract. Alright, now into part two, a little news story, Papa Buffett and Salesforce joining the party. So like we said in the beginning, it probably wasn't the Oracle of Omaha who decided to get into Snowflake. It was probably one of his lieutenants, but they still had to get his blessing, which is a big deal. Berkshire Hathaway will be buying over $500 million worth of Snowflake stock, totaling to about 2.6% ownership in the company. This might actually be a bigger deal for Berkshire Hathaway as we see Buffett possibly loosening his grip on the reins and letting the next generation have a little more control and direction for the company. But whether it was him or not, the investment from Berkshire Hathaway is a huge confidence booster for any potential investor in Snowflake. The real key partnership I wanted to talk about in this segment is Salesforce. Salesforce is already an influential partner with Snowflake, taking part in February's $479 million funding round, giving Snow a $12.4 billion valuation at the time, which has since casually doubled. The relationship between Salesforce and Snowflake is to make it easier for people to access Salesforce data on Snowflake. Remember that network of users and data that we were talking about before on Snowflake? Additionally, Salesforce owns Tableau, and together Tableau and Snowflake can work hand in hand. Snowflake delivers a scalable and flexible data warehouse for the cloud, while Tableau provides powerful visual analytics of said data. Now for part 3, here we go, the juicy financials. A look at their consolidated balance sheet, giving us the numbers from July 2020, shows that Snowflake had $886 million in cash and $1.43 billion in total assets. Now here's a new term we have never seen before on this channel: working capital. The equation for working capital is just current assets minus current liabilities. A positive number for working capital usually indicates good near-term financial health because it also indicates a current ratio greater than 1. It also speaks to the firm's operational efficiency and liquidity. So back on the balance sheet, we see that Snowflake had a working capital of $315 million, which as far as I can tell is very promising. Looking at the income statement, we see some really strong revenue growth where fiscal year ended revenue went from just $96 million in 2019 to $264 million in 2020. This is over 170% growth year over year. They have taken a net loss every quarter since their inception, but if you look at their 6 months ended July 31st, the net loss was reduced from the same 6 months in 2019 to 2020. Snowflake will not be profitable anytime soon in my opinion, but that doesn't mean it's not worth investing in. Another key metric to keep an eye on is actually called gross margin, and SaaS businesses or software as a service businesses usually have very strong gross margins. Snowflake has certainly been improving theirs, moving from 49% in the 6 months ended July 2019 to 62% for the same 6 months in 2020. To be honest, and of course unbiased, 62% is really not that great for a SaaS company in today's environment. I should note that Snowflake's gross margin is actually much more limited than other SaaS companies because Snowflake has to pay AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud for using their infrastructure. Lastly, take a look at these statistics. I want to focus specifically on their net retention rate of 158%. A retention rate of over 100% in this scenario means that Snowflake is making increasingly more money from their existing customers than they're losing from customers that are leaving. In other words, customers are spending increasingly more money on Snowflake, and 158% retention rate is nothing to dismiss. But who is at the helm of this company? Let's talk about that in part 4. Who is at the leadership of Snowflake? More importantly, who is their CEO and what is he about? The CEO is an incredibly important position for any company, so for any investment you should take a look at, that's right, their CEO. Frank Slootman recently became the CEO of Snowflake in 2019, not too long ago. He has an incredible track record of taking companies public and growing revenue at incredible paces. From 2003 to 2009, Slootman took a startup called Data Domain from no customers and no revenue to an IPO in 2007, over $1 billion in sales, and eventually in 2009, Data Domain was acquired by EMC for about $2.4 billion. Then, from 2011 to 2017, Slootman became the CEO of ServiceNow. He took them through their IPO, and during his time as CEO, ServiceNow stock ran up over 270%. From watching his interviews, you can tell he's methodical and strategic in his decision making, but also still aggressive. And most importantly, he really believes that Snowflake is important and disruptive technology. If I were an investor in Snowflake, I'd be very happy with Frank at the helm. But it is not all sunshine and rainbows. Let's talk about part 5, the competition and risky risks involved with this investment. Now I put these two together, competition and risky risks, because in this case, they're kind of one and the same. You'll see what I mean. Snowflake is used on AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. But AWS and Google have a service on those platforms that pretty much does what Snowflake does. So in a way, the very companies that allow Snowflake to interact with their customers are the very same companies that are their competitors. Let's take AWS for example. They have Amazon Redshift, which performs similar tasks to Snowflake. What's to stop Amazon from canceling Snowflake on their platform and just pushing their own Redshift? See how this is not only competition but also a risk if Amazon decides to stop playing nice and cut Snowflake off and completely destroy their AWS customer segment. Now, the first counter argument for this potential danger, competition, and risk is that the cloud data market is just so massive, Snowflake will find customers to serve. And to me, this doesn't hold water if I'm going to put my hard-earned money into this company. You gotta give me a better reason than that. The better reason is that Snowflake is a neutral third party. Snowflake is one of the only cloud-native applications that works across all three of these cloud platforms. Companies want and need the freedom to be able to switch to and from or between AWS, Azure, and Google. Not only for operational purposes, but also as a bargaining chip. So they can say, hey, AWS, if you don't bring the price here, I'm going to jump ship to Google or Microsoft. So if Redshift only works for AWS and that's what you go with in the beginning, but now you want to leave, you're stuck with Redshift that only works on AWS. It doesn't follow you to Microsoft or Google, but Snowflake does. Snowflake lets you move around freely between these different vendors. You're not just stuck with one. And that is their advantage. Now for the big part 6, what am I going to do? I actually really like Snowflake. Their growth numbers are absolutely incredible, their financials seem very solid, and they do have a visible path to break even, although it might not be anytime soon. My only concern here is what is their competitive moat? What is their barrier to entry so that a new startup can't just come and take their business within the next few years? I still need to do more due diligence on this company, but if I were to make a decision right now with the information that I just presented to you, I would probably buy some on IPO day, buy enough to where if it shoots up in very short term and skyrockets to a ridiculous price, like it probably will, I'll be able to sell some of my position and hold the rest for the long run. So that's probably the play that I would make if I were to invest. If I do end up buying the stock, I'll be holding it for many, many years to come, and the only reason I would sell is either because of a fundamental change or some new information that I missed on the first go round. If you found any value in this video, and I hope you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and check out our quote of the day. We're gonna see if we can get it on camera. There it is. I don't have my... Okay, anyways, make sure to follow me on Instagram where I post daily about my portfolio, stocks I'm watching, and all that good stuff. If you're watching at this point in the video, you are the real MVPs. Don't forget your peace and thank yous.